$21,253.98. That is the exact amount the state of Florida mailed to 764 men in the summer of 2025. We will get to what that check was for. It is the last stop on this list, and it is the one you will not shake. You have been lied to about Florida, not in a small way either. The brochure sells you beaches, mouse ears, and a sunset over a pool bar, and all of that is real. It just is not the whole map. There is a second Florida underneath the first, and the state has never been in a hurry for you to find it. So what if the creepiest places here are not the ones on the ghost tour? What if the ghost tour is the cover story? Tonight, a hill so strange the local elementary school named itself after the ghost. A group that believed we live on the inside of the earth, and kept its dead prophet in a bathtub waiting for him to come back. And a field in Manatee County holding 400 million gallons of water that nobody wants to describe out loud. Think you know creepy Florida? You know the tourist version. The real list is not kept by ghost hunters. It is kept by archaeologists, geologists, and the Department of Environmental Protection. And not one of them is trying to sell you a t-shirt. Subscribe before we start, because every number in this video was checked against state records, and by the end, you will know which famous Florida legends are documented and which one a guy made up out of spite. 13 places. Let's break it down. Number 13, Spook Hill in Lake Wales, Polk County. There is a public elementary school beside this place called Spook Hill Elementary, and its mascot is a friendly cartoon ghost. An entire generation of Polk County kids grew up with a specter on their gym shirts. Here is what the hill does. You stop at a white line painted on the asphalt, put the car in neutral, and you appear to roll backward up the slope. It has pulled tourists since the 1950s. And in April of 2019, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. Billed as the only known gravity hill in Florida. The sign credits a Seminole chief and an enormous alligator who died fighting here, and asks whether the pull is the gator seeking revenge or the chief holding his ground. What is actually happening is an optical illusion. The horizon is tilted, so downhill reads as up. Now the trade-off. In person, this is a slope. You will drive across the middle of the state, park at a residential intersection, and experience about 4 seconds of mild confusion. The federal government has placed a slight incline on the National Register of Historic Places, which means somewhere there is a file folder, an application, and a preservation officer who signed off on a gentle grade. Like this video if you have ever driven an hour for an attraction that turned out to be a mild incline. Stay close, because the next one is not an illusion. It ate a neighborhood. Number 12, the Winter Park Sinkhole, Orange County. After the ground ate part of their town, the city went into the souvenir business and started selling Sinkhole City merchandise. A rival t-shirt vendor sued over it. The city won. It opened on the evening of May 8, 1981, and kept growing for 2 days. The United States Geological Survey puts it at roughly 350 feet across and between 75 and 100 feet deep. It swallowed a house, part of the municipal swimming pool, an auto repair shop, and 5 Porsches, along with about 250,000 cubic yards of earth. Damage ran between $2 and $4 million. Nobody died, and that is the only reason this one is fun. 2 of the Porsches were never recovered. Here is the part that gets me. The hole filled with water, and the city named it Lake Rose. Florida's entire coping mechanism is nomenclature. The earth opened, ate a swimming pool, and 5 sports cars in front of a live television audience. And the civic response was to give it a name you would put on a bed and breakfast. And under that pleasant water sit 2 vehicles that have been parked since 1981, which makes Lake Rose the worst parking garage in Orange County. Subscribe, because we will keep telling you which pretty Florida lakes used to be somebody's driveway. And if that unsettles you, wait until an entire country gets abandoned in the woods outside Orlando. Number 11, Splendid China in Four Corners, just west of Kissimmee. The centerpiece was a half-mile replica of the Great Wall of China, built from nearly 7 million individually placed 1-inch bricks. Somebody laid 7 million tiny bricks by hand in the Florida heat, and then the park closed. It opened in 1993 at a cost of $100 million, covering 75 acres, with more than 60 handcrafted replicas at 1/10 scale, including a 4-story Lishan Buddha. It was owned by a company controlled by the Chinese government. It shut down on December 31, 2003, and then it simply sat. Demolition did not finish until 2016. That is more than 10 years of a miniature country rotting in the woods, next door to the busiest theme park corridor on the planet. You cannot visit, and that is the trade-off, because the land is a Margaritaville resort now. Sit with that sequence. A state-funded propaganda park built by a foreign government, abandoned for a decade, then bulldozed and replaced by a resort themed around a Jimmy Buffett song. That is the most American series of events ever recorded. Somewhere under a lazy river is a fragment of a scale model of the Great Wall. Picture this. It is 2008. You are standing inside a scale model of the Forbidden City at dusk, and the palace walls come up to your chest. Spray paint runs across a temple roof. Vines have pulled a pagoda halfway down. And under all of it, constant, you can hear the interstate. Drop a comment with the abandoned place near you that everybody knows about and nobody talks about. Next, from a country that vanished to a house nobody ever repaired, on purpose. Number 10, the Ma Barker House in Ocklawaha, Marion County. Local accounts hold that part of what turned the neighborhood was talk that Fred Barker wanted to shoot Old Joe, a beloved local alligator. And when the shooting finally started, townspeople reportedly came out with picnic baskets to watch. On January 16, 1935, federal agents surrounded the house. Estimates of rounds fired run from 700 to 2,000 over 4 to 6 hours. It remains the longest gunfight in the history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Kate Barker, 61, and her son Fred, 33, died in an upstairs bedroom. In 2016, the house was moved to Carney Island and preserved with the bullet holes left exactly where they were. You can still stand in that bedroom. The trade-off is access, tours run by appointment only, well off the main road. But consider the preservation logic. Florida saved this structure specifically because it is full of bullet holes. The historical value is the damage. Everywhere else in America, a house gets landmarked for its moldings, its staircase, its architect. This one got landmarked for ballistics. And the picnic detail never leaves me. A whole community treated a federal siege as a matinee, packed sandwiches, watched 2 people die, and then went home and had a normal Wednesday. Would you tour a house where 2 people died in the room you are standing in? Comment yes or comment absolutely not. Next, a man who spent 28 years building a castle out of coral, alone, at night, and never told anyone how he did it. Number 9, Coral Castle. In Homestead, Miami-Dade County, Billy Idol wrote his 1986 song, Sweet 16, after visiting this place. There is an 80s radio hit about a pile of rocks south of Miami. Edward Leedskalnin, a Latvian immigrant reportedly about 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, cut, moved, and set roughly 1,100 tons of oolite limestone between 1923 and 1951. Alone. One gate weighs 9 tons and was balanced so precisely that a child could push it open with a finger. He paid about $12 for the original plot and charged 10 cents at the door. He worked at night, by lantern. If people came to watch, he stopped until they left. He died in 1951 without ever demonstrating his method, and the internet has been filling that silence ever since. The trade-off is that the mystery is not much of a mystery. Engineers point to tripods, block and tackle, leverage, and an unlimited supply of patience. But we would rather believe a small man in Homestead discovered anti-gravity than accept that he was simply relentless. We will accept magnetic secrets of the pyramids. We will accept a lost civilization. What we will not accept is a guy with good rigging and no social life. And the strangest part is that he did tell people. He said he understood the laws of weight and leverage. Nobody wanted that answer, so he kept the ghost story instead. Like this video if you have ever been so locked in on a project that people assumed you had help. Next, the American government pointed nuclear missiles at the sky from inside a swamp. Number 8, the Nike missile base inside Everglades National Park. The water table here is so high that this is one of the only Nike sites in America with no underground magazines. The missiles sat in above-ground barns on stabilized swamp. And a restored 41-foot Nike Hercules missile is still lying inside one of them. It was built in 1964 and 1965 after the Cuban Missile Crisis, because Cuba is about 90 miles away. It housed up to 150 soldiers and as many as 18 nuclear-capable missiles, and it was the last fixed air defense missile site operating in the continental United States, active until 1979. 22 buildings survive, and it went on the National Register in 2004. The trade-off is that ranger tours are seasonal, roughly December through April, which tells you something. The base is open to the public exactly during the months when the insects are survivable. Now think about the assignment. Your job is guarding the end of the world, and the daily threat to morale is bugs. Planners aimed a defense system at a foreign power 90 miles south, and the enemy that actually won was the humidity. Picture this: sawgrass to the horizon in every direction, moving all at once when the wind comes through. A concrete barn with the doors open, and inside it, cool air and a missile on a trailer. A heron lifts off a canal. And you are standing in the last place in the continental United States where the Cold War was still loaded. Share this one with the friend who thinks the Everglades is just alligators. Stay with me, because next we go to a town where the residents are, by charter, psychics. Number 7, Casadaga in Volusia County. The whole town is a camp meeting association, which means when you buy a house here, you buy the house and lease the land from the association. Your closing paperwork is normal. Your neighbors are certified mediums. It was founded in 1894 by a medium named George Colby, who said spirits led him to this exact patch of Central Florida. Roughly 100 people live here. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It runs Sunday message services where mediums deliver messages from the dead to the room, and it calls itself the psychic capital of the world. Here is the part nobody puts in the video. The famous attraction is the Devil's Chair, a brick seat in the nearby Lake Helen Cemetery, where an unopened beer left overnight is supposedly empty by morning. It is not a devil's chair. It is a Victorian mourning bench, the kind cemeteries put out so visitors could sit with their dead. Historian Dr. Deborah Bauer has said so publicly. The camp's own clergy have said the same. And that is the trade-off, because this town keeps telling the truth, and the truth keeps losing. An entire tourism economy now rests on a bench. Local historians explain every year that it is a bench, and visitors nod politely and come back after dark with a six-pack. Given the choice between municipal furniture and a chair for Satan, we take the chair every single time. Would you spend one night in Casadaga? Comment yes or no, and be truthful, because I already know the answer for most of you. That is 7, and the back half is where this stops being fun. From here on, everything is documented. Excavation reports, agency filings, court records. If you are still with me, hit the like button now. It costs nothing, and it does more for a channel like this than you would think. And subscribe, because next week we go somewhere the sunlight does not reach. All right, top 6. Number 6, the Coruscant Unity Settlement in Estero, Lee County. They believed we live on the inside of the Earth, not on a globe, on the interior curve of a hollow sphere, with the sun in the middle. They built a survey instrument on Naples Beach to prove it, and announced the results confirmed everything. The group was founded in 1894 by Cyrus Teed, a physician who renamed himself Koresh after an electrical accident he described as a divine visitation. Membership peaked around 250. They were celibate, communal, and certain the world was ending soon. Teed died on December 22, 1908. His followers kept his body in a bathtub, waiting for the resurrection until the county health officer arrived and ended the vigil. His tomb was built by the water, and the hurricane of 1921 carried it into the Gulf. The trade-off is that there is no danger here at all, which somehow makes it worse. This is a state park with clean restrooms and a gift shop, built by people so confident about resurrection that they treated a decomposing body as a scheduling matter. Somebody in that community had to go get the health officer. And then the Gulf took the tomb, which remains the only recorded case of a hurricane offering a theological opinion. Picture this. Late afternoon on the Estero River, bamboo along the bank, planted by people who expected the world to end before it grew. A cottage with a lamp still positioned beside a reading chair. The light goes orange, the river goes still, and you are standing in a village built by people who were completely certain and completely wrong, and who left the place immaculate anyway. Subscribe, because that is what this channel does, the receipts and the weird. And next, from a group that thought we live inside the Earth, to a place that will take you inside it. Number 5, Eagle's Nest Sink near Weeki Wachee, Hernando County. 15 minutes away is Weeki Wachee Springs, where performers have breathed through air hoses in an underwater theater since 1947. Florida's mermaid capital and Florida's deadliest dive site share a zip code. From the surface, Eagle's Nest is a pond in the woods. Under it is a cave system that drops past 300 feet 9 to 11 miles from the last pavement, inside the Chassahowitzko Wildlife Management Area. The Tampa Bay Times reports that at least 12 divers have died there since 1981. It was closed to diving entirely from 1999 until 2003. On Christmas Day of 2013, a father and his 15-year-old son died there. In October of 2016, 2 experienced instructors were recovered from around 260 feet. Divers call this the Mount Everest of cave diving, and the comparison holds in the way nobody wants. There is a sign at the water's edge. It says stop. It says prevent your death. It says go no farther, and then it tells you that more than 300 divers, including certified open water instructors, have died in caves just like this one. That sign is the entire safety infrastructure. This is public land, no gate, no ticket booth, no ranger at the trailhead, and no cell signal for most of the drive in. The only thing standing between the parking area and a 300-foot vertical cave is a piece of painted metal, and it is not decoration. Picture this: black water, flat as glass, ringed by cypress. Sunlight goes down maybe 40 feet and then stops. And below that line, the cave opens outward into a room the size of a cathedral, in total darkness. No sound, no current, nothing moving at all. Share this one with anyone you know who dives. Not as a scary story, as information. Next, an island that was once the county seat of Dade County. Number 4, Indian Key, off Isla Mirada in the Florida Keys. This island is 11 acres. You can walk the length of it in about 4 minutes. And in 1836, it was named the county seat of Dade County, not Miami. This rock. The economy was wrecking, which meant salvaging cargo off ships that hit the reef. It supported a hotel, warehouses, and platted streets, and for a stretch, it was wealthier than anything on the mainland. On August 7, 1840, during the Second Seminole War, a force estimated at between 60 and 130 warriors, led by Chakaika, landed on the island. Accounts of the dead range from 6 to 18. Nearly every structure burned. Dr. Henry Perrine, a botanist, was killed while his family hid in a turtle corral beneath the house and escaped by breaking through a wall into the water underneath him. The town was never rebuilt. The trade-off is that reaching it takes a boat or a kayak, and once you land, there is no shade, no water, and no facilities. But sit with the business model. The county seat of Dade County ran an economy built entirely on other people's shipwrecks. Their whole prosperity depended on strangers having the worst night of their lives on a reef a mile offshore. They did not merely tolerate that. They built a hotel on it and named avenues. Picture this. Coral rubble underfoot laid out in a grid. Agave taller than you are, growing straight out of a cistern that used to serve a house. Street corners with no streets. The reef line breaking white past the mangroves, and the same water that made this place rich sitting there, patient, saying nothing. Like this video if you had no idea Dade County started on an island the size of a shopping center. Next, the oldest city in the country, and the one number that explains all of it. Number 3, St. Augustine. The world's first permanent Ripley's Believe It or Not auditorium opened here in December of 1950. Inside an 1887 Moorish revival mansion, once co-owned by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings, the author of The Yearling. Before it was a museum of oddities, it was a novelist's house. Here is the number, 460 years. St. Augustine was founded on September 8, 1565 by Pedro Menendez de Avilés, 42 years before Jamestown. The city's population in the 2020 census was 14,698. The Castillo de San Marcos, built between 1672 and 1695, is the oldest masonry fort in the continental United States, and it was made of coquina, a shellstone so soft that incoming cannonballs sank into the walls instead of shattering them. The fort was never taken by force. The lighthouse has been featured on Ghost Hunters twice. The old jail, built in 1891 with Henry Flagler's money, held prisoners until 1953 and recorded 8 hangings. And just north of the old city is Fort Mose, founded in 1738, the first legally sanctioned free black settlement in what is now the United States, excavated by Dr. Kathleen Deegan of the University of Florida. That last one is not a ghost story. It is the most important thing in this city, and it is the thing the trolleys drive past. Which brings us to the trade-off. 460 years of documented history, and the town's largest export is a trolley with a fog machine. You will be offered a ghost tour roughly every 90 feet. There are more electromagnetic field meters per square mile in this city than in most physics departments, and every one of them is being held by someone in a costume. This place survived pirate raids, sieges, a British invasion, and 3 separate colonial empires. It is losing to the gift shops. Picture this, 6 in the morning before the tours, fog off the Matanzas River. The coquina walls go gray, then gold, and the surface of the stone looks like a beach that decided to become a building. Gulls over the water, your footsteps echoing off 400-year-old walls. On a street laid out by people who have been dead for 4 centuries. Comment which one you would actually walk into alone after dark, the lighthouse, the old jail, or the fort. And next, the creepiest place on this list is not old at all. It is 4 years old, and it is still sitting there. Number 2, Piney Point in Manatee County. The gypsum stacks here are, functionally, Florida's mountains. Flat-topped white plateaus rising out of a coastal plain that otherwise tops out around the height of a stepladder. On satellite images, they look like somebody dropped a piece of Utah onto the Gulf Coast. This is an abandoned fertilizer plant that stopped operating in 2001. In late March of 2021, a liner tore in a stack holding roughly 400 million gallons of wastewater. 316 households sat inside the evacuation zone. Crews pumped at 22,000 gallons a minute and ultimately released about 215 million gallons into Port Manatee and Tampa Bay. The governor declared a state of emergency on April 3, 2021. Phosphogypsum contains uranium, thorium, and radium decays into radon. So what sat above those neighborhoods was a lake of mildly radioactive wastewater held in place by a plastic liner on a site nobody had operated in 20 years. The discharge then fed a red tide down the coast. The trade-off is that you cannot go there, and after reading the filings, you would not want to. But the language is what stays with me. Stack. They call it a stack. 400 million gallons of radioactive water, and the industry term makes it sound like laundry. Nobody in a permitting meeting ever said the words radioactive lake. They said gypsum stack management, and everyone in the room nodded, and the phrase went into a document, and the document went into a drawer, and that drawer sat for 20 years while the liner aged. Language is load-bearing. The liner was not. Picture this, sunset over Manatee County. Chalk white plateaus glowing pink at the edges, mangroves below, herons working the shallows, and a low mechanical hum from pumps that have not stopped since 2001. It is beautiful. That is the problem. Subscribe, because this channel reads the filings so you do not have to. And number 1 is the reason we started reading them. Number 1, the Dozier School for Boys in Marianna, Jackson County. Mariana is home to Florida Cavern State Park, the only state park in Florida with dry, air-filled caves you can walk through. In a state built on swamp and sand, this is the one place where the ground opens into rooms. The school opened in 1900 as the Florida State Reform School and operated for 111 years. It closed in 2011. In 2013 and 2014, a University of South Florida team, led by Dr. Erin Kimmerle, excavated 55 graves on the property and recovered the remains of 51 people. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement had documented 31. In 2019, ground-penetrating radar identified 27 more anomalies. Survivors describe a small white concrete building where boys were beaten, sometimes until they lost consciousness, for offenses as minor as talking back. A fire in 1914 killed boys who could not get out of a locked dormitory. A Justice Department civil rights investigation in 2011 documented abuse. Families were not always notified when a boy died. Many of the boys buried on those grounds have still never been identified. In 2024, Florida enacted House Bill 21 and appropriated $20 million for the men who survived Dozier and the Okeechobee School. 930 applied, 764 were approved. On June 30th, 2025, the checks went out, and each was written for $21,253.98. That is the number from the beginning of this video. That is what a century of it came to. Divided. Picture this. Pine flatwoods in the Panhandle. Mown grass, and standing in it, rows of plain white metal crosses, 31 of them, set over ground that held more. No legend on a sign, no tour, no trolley, no fog machine. Just a fence, a field, and the specific quiet of a place where the story was true the whole time, and nobody with the authority to act wanted to hear it. If you take one thing out of this video, take this. The creepiest places in Florida are not the ones with legends attached. They are the ones with paperwork. Share this entry with someone who thinks the scary stuff is the ghost stories. So here is the reframe. Creepy is not a vibe in this state. It is a paper trail. Every place on this list got worse the more documentation we found. And the ones that got less frightening under scrutiny were the ones with the best legends attached. Hit like, because it is the only reason a video full of excavation reports and agency filings ever reaches anybody. Subscribe, because we are doing this for every state, and the next one already has 2 entries that made me put the laptop down. And share this with the person who has lived in Florida their whole life and thinks they have seen it because they have not seen half of it. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and never let anybody else pick your map.